Have you ever wondered what it would be like if characters from our favorite media were brought into our world? Well, that's what Recreator is about, and we're going to check it out. Hey everyone, welcome back, Truland here. Now today we're checking out Recreators. With Recreators hitting its second core right now, I want to see what people are so excited about when this show came around. So without further ado, let's just get into it. Now, let's talk about the general story and setting of the world of Recreators. We have a world where characters from your favorite anime, favorite manga, favorite light novel, whatever kind of media you enjoy, it brought to our real world. In this case, it's Japan. Similar to Fate Stay Night or the Fate series in general, we have our created characters and their creators pairing together to fight against other creators and their created character. But unfortunately, it being set in Japan is actually kind of tiring, as we're going to see regular Japanese cities, Japanese surroundings, and it can get kind of boring with the colorful cast that we're providing. So with all that said, the main plot is definitely still focusing on these fantasy characters duking out with each other. And when we really get into it, let's talk about the characters. We have our main character, Sota. I believe the name is Sota Mizushino, something like that. But Sota himself is boring with the capital B. Sota adds absolutely nothing to the series. He can't fight, he can't create, he can't really do anything. We see he's an artist, but he has some sort of artist block or some sort of troubles as an artist. But even then, it's not that interesting, it's not that compelling, because Sota, again, adds nothing. He could be a totally different character and still add nothing. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, Sota's role can be filled by any generic character. Sota being passive, shy, not really well spoken, as he doesn't have a lot of lines. In the first episode he does. He talks quite a bit, but then as the episodes go on, his role lessens even more, and he's our main character. Or at least we're sort of believe that, because we start the episode 1, with Sota, but he doesn't do anything substantial in the whole series, besides kind of get carried around by the other characters. Honestly, Sota is one of the reasons I don't like this show, and I wouldn't continue watching it, because I don't care to see him grow and develop over a span of time if he's just going to remain boring for the majority of the show. When you write stories, people say you have to create a relatable character. Sota being a boring character and adding nothing to these fantastical characters with interesting designs, interesting personalities, is bad. He brings it all down. He doesn't feel like an ordinary person. He doesn't feel like me or you. He just feels like someone who just has to be there. And he has to be there solely because he has to explain things to the characters who are new to the world. That's it. That's all there is to it. Now, I'm done ranting on Sota. I think all I can say is, again, boring with a capital B. Then we move over to the character Sledger, who I believe is supposed to be the next protagonist. When we come to lead characters, she has to be the female protagonist, if anything at all. We don't see too much of her personality besides cliches that we already kind of know, and other than that, it's very hard to take a grasp of her character. Her being a female knight who's noble, she's kind-hearted when she needs to be, she'll protect her friends, all that kind of stuff. It's cool and all, and the only defining moment I can take from her is episode 2, when she says, "That's just the reality of the world," where I found that line itself to be very memorable and really stick out to her character. But other than that, she hasn't really done much else for me to like her. Now, going over her appearance, she looks like Asuna from Sword Art Online and many other fantasy light novels or even fantasy setting animes like to use this kind of look. A foreigner girl with bright colored hair, either red, orange, or blonde, especially with the braid too. Now, another thing to note about Sledger's design is it's okay. I like it. The boob window is stupid. I don't like it particularly. It doesn't add anything to her character or her charm at all. Overall, I can't say Sledger is much of a bad character, as we really haven't got to see her like fleshed out in the most dramatic moments. We've seen her as a comedy relief, and she can sometimes be funny, if not cliche. Then we have Meteora, who honestly I don't like. And it kind of comes off as I don't like any of the main characters. Our leading cast just isn't that interesting at all, and that's a problem. I remember thinking to myself, Meteora's talking, and she's been talking for a long time, like 7 or 8 minutes of just dialogue. She's been saying things. As much as you take in the dialogue, it's just boring. Part of it is the way the character portrays it. I understand what kind of character she is, but still doesn't make it any less boring. You can have a character who's dull, who doesn't really emote as much, but still be interesting. Meteor isn't that interesting. She eats a lot. That's a trait we picked up, but that's about it. Meteor's powers are kind of cool. They're similar to Gilgamesh's from Fate. And again, this story seems like it's taken a bit from Fate with Silesia being like a sword user, except she has a mech, which is cool. That does set her apart from any other Fate character I've seen. But Meteor having like the gates really does make her seem like Gilgamesh in a way. Then we have one of my favorite, at least by design aspect, characters, Gunpuku no Hime Gimi. Her real name hasn't been said yet, but her character design is absolutely amazing. She's badass by all means. She looks cool, she acts cool, but unfortunately her personality isn't really there. She's quiet and she's supposed to be the antagonist, and that's all we really know about her. But overall, I would watch the show just to see more of her because I feel she would be a cool character. Now that's all assumption though. And the other characters were introduced by episode 2, the end of 2, and 3, the creators being one of them. And honestly, the creators, again, just like Sota, are kind of boring people, besides the fact of Silesia's creator, the writer, because it's a light novel, so there's a writer and there's an artist. The writer's kind of funny. He does have some jokes. I did laugh a few times when I saw him on the screen. But other than that, he is just another dude. You can see he's kind of like balding or something, so he's like a middle-aged dude who writes a book, a fantasy novel. I understand anime, you have relatable characters, people you can relate to, but if they're utterly boring people, like most people in the world, why would you care about them? It's still a story. There has to be some interesting facet of a character. And unfortunately, for the human side of it, a lot of them are just boring characters. While we have one of the characters introduced in episode 2, at the end 2, and then we see more of him in the beginning of 3, Yuya. He's cool. He's pretty badass. And we know his character trope, his cliche, he is the last boss. He's the rival of the main character. He's really cool in all means. He has like a stand behind him and stuff like that. He left as soon as he entered, and I thought he was going to stick around way longer, but I guess not. Then we have Mamika, who's a magical girl, who honestly I don't particularly care about. Now, she did break the magical girl standard, as most magical girl TV shows don't have blood or crazy excessive violence. Go watch Precure, you'll see what I mean. That's pretty violent, but like, you're not gonna see blood and stuff all over the place. She had this moment where she wasn't used to that thing, so it's breaking the meta that we know of the series so far. But that's enough about characters, because the characters in it themselves obviously are going to grow over time. This is a 20-something episode series. Having a slower pacing is fine by that standard. Art and animation. Where do I start with this? The show looks fine. It's made by Studio Troika, a studio that I've never really heard of, or at least not revered by anyone really, with a basic looking animation style design too. One thing I did notice is the colors are kind of dull at some points. Like the hair isn't super shiny, or their eyes don't like really stick out or stand out from anything else. We have regular human proportions to all the characters. None of them seem like they're super lanky, besides Yuya. Yuya is a pretty lanky character, but other than that, all the characters kind of look like regular people in the case. And since each character from a different series will have a varying style of character designs, but they all still seem like they're part of this show, if you understand what I mean. Like, it doesn't seem like, oh, they're from a separate show, like, so their design is radically different. They're all drawn the same way that this style tries to interpret it as. Now, unfortunately, being an action show, one of the things you need is great animation. The action scenes are good, they don't stand out as great, and episode 1 almost went there. It almost went to that bar of being great, but it missed it by a shot. As you have Gunpuku no Himegimi, who has her weapons and they whir around her, that kind of thing. Other than that, we didn't see a lot of great action. We saw stuff that's basic in like a fighting episode later into the series. I really wanted this anime to wow me with its fighting scenes. Episode 2 really didn't do it. There's great key animation frames there, but there's no like impressive Senkuga involved in this anime. Hiroyuki Sawano lends his hands to this anime, and again, if you like him, you like him. I think by this point, people who like Hiroyuki Sawano's music like it, and people who don't like it, don't like it. He has a very similar taste. You know, when you hear his music, you've heard almost all of it. There's very little he can do that will really shock you, and make you think, wow, that's really different. The main theme is one of the few songs in the anime I can remember very well. As far as the sounds go, again, the Gunpuku no Himegimi, her whirling swords, that's something I really remember very well, or when she even, like, strung her gun with her sword like a violin. That was pretty cool too, the sounds that came from there. But other than that, basic anime sounds, basic soundtrack, besides the fact that Hiroyuki Sawano is there. This isn't his A work, for sure. He does great in the opening, but as far as everything else in the main theme, it doesn't really sound that great. Okay, so here are my impressions. By episode 1, I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. I get your gist. I like Fate as well, the Fate series. So I'll see where you want to go with this. You know, Gunpuku no Himegimi is pretty cool. I would watch this show just to see more of her. But by episode 2, I had noticed when I looked at the time, we were 9 minutes in, and it was just boring dialogue. And I was like, oh, well, you know, episode 2 is normally a cutoff. It's normally a cooldown episode, that kind of thing. But even then, you want something interesting, or at least something funny. But it wasn't even funny. I'm sitting there kind of bored for half of the episode. And then later we have a fight scene that really started because it made no sense, right? One of the characters' convictions would say otherwise, that she would fight someone under those circumstances. And while episode 2 is normally a cooldown chapter, and we move on to episode 3, which may be a more heated episode where things pick back up, episode 3 is another cooldown with just character development. That's all it is character development, is building our characters. The story is very slow, by all means. It seems they want to really focus on building their characters, which is fine. I think a lot of anime rush to their characters and say, this is my character, this is everything about them, accept that information, and then we'll move on with the plot. But if the characters here want to be fleshed out in a certain different way, I think its slowly pacing will help it in that way. So when I came out thinking of the pros and cons for this show, I couldn't come up with a lot of pros, to be honest. And one of the pros is also a con, as this show is meta. It's very meta breaking, right? It talks about magical girls and how, oh no, there's no blood in our shows ever. That's very meta breaking. If you like fourth wall breaking, if you like jokes, if you like shows that are aware of itself, then yeah, that's your thing. But the con to that is, when you have a show like that, it's easy to make an easy joke or an easy reference that everyone understands because they have a reference to, right? Magical girl shows, oh, we know about those, I'll enjoy those, so that's easy to write for, that's easy to make a joke about, it's easy to make a statement about. That's where it comes off, is you have a reference to it. The show isn't really doing much work for you. You're sitting there and you understand the reference itself. You know, as far as offering anything different as a narrative, or magical girls, or light novel adaptations, recreators just hits the punches that we already know. Oh wow, Silesia is a bright-haired knight warrior character who isn't a tsundere who will hit the main character, even though our main character is so boring he wouldn't even go past the line of saying, oh, can I see your panties or something. It's so pointless to break a line that isn't going to be broken by the show itself. Or Meteora eating a lot, right? That, oh, she's a quiet girl but she's an obsessive glutton. Mamika, oh no, there's no blood in my show. What am I to do? I don't know what to do. This is new to me. And that's where I feel Recreators doesn't stand on its own. Opposed to Mother's Basement, who said it's going to be a classic, I don't think it could stand as a classic because it relies on everything we already know. Cliches, meta, jokes, references, everything we already know. And that's why I'm not going to really have a pros and cons on this video. Next one, yeah, but I can't agree with people saying because it knows these references and it tries to change up the narrative that it's better. These first 3 episodes add really nothing. They add obvious statements we've already known before. You know, and another flaw of Recreators is characters info dumping. One of storytelling's biggest rules: show, not tell. Again, back to the Mamika part. Blood, right? Blood's not in my show. Okay, we see that. We see her freaking out to it. But you didn't have to have Celestia say, yeah, probably in your world it's not like this. You could have just said, she could have just said, the world is cruel. isn't it? That line, that would have intensified it even more, and then we have Mamika freak out even to a bigger display and see her reaction, you know. And this is where we could put in some great animation with some great shading, where Mamika is freaking out over a new world that she's in and she just doesn't understand the rules. But instead, we get info dumped, so much information. Episode 3, how it ended up in a bus when they tried to change Celestia's character. I'm sorry, there should be a spoiler warning in the beginning. They try to change her character and it fails. It's okay if it fails. That's fine. In fact, I like that it failed. Because if they said, oh, I want to change her character, boom, she's a totally different character and she's stronger than ever, that would have sucked. It would have broken the scaling for the characters, right? Because if that's the case, anyone could just write their character even stronger than before. I want to like it. I really do. And I don't feel the show is pretentious at all. I think the show is being earnest by all means. This is what the show wants to display. It's not trying to say a crazy heavy message. You know, when you deal with a story that is like Recreators, where the characters know they're coming from a story, they're coming from a book, and everything else like that, the show doesn't have to be crazy pretentious about it and say, this is how writing should be. This is how you should write a story. This is the wrong kind of story. It doesn't have to say any of that stuff. Recreators doesn't need to either. Definitely, Recreators doesn't benefit from being boring. Having characters just info dump. That's not cool. You know, having info dumps is understandable. I understand you need to have them. Fate is guilty of this. You know, Recreators has a mystery and it definitely wants us to think about it, ponder it. But when it comes to it, I'm afraid Recreator is going to come to that mystery, the point where we're going to figure it out. And they're just going to tell us. And we're never going to, instead of the audience figuring out it themselves, they're just going to tell us the answer to the mystery. That's why I'm afraid for Recreators of telling and not showing. The first episode did a great job at showing, not telling. You know, we knew the Gunpoku Himegimi was an enemy, and we had the fighter. Celestia was fighting Gunpoku Himegimi. But overall, final verdict, Recreators. Am I, personally, was I in or out? And I'll tell you, I was confused. I really was. I don't know how I felt about the show 100%. Sitting down and thinking about it, it just felt more of a, wow, this could get boring really fast. And we have to gauge if we really want to invest our time in those 3 episodes. Recreators on its second core, I haven't heard the buzz around it as much anymore. I'm sure lots of people are still excited for the show, but the hype that when it first came out doesn't seem to be around. At least by YouTube standards, I don't see enough videos of it recommended to me anymore. But I think I missed the question. Recreators, am I in or am I out? I'm actually going to give it a few more episodes, but honestly, it just doesn't seem worth the time. Me figuring out who Gunpoku no Himegimi, whatever. Me figuring out who she is and her mystery, that might be at the very end of the season. And I just don't care to see Sota anymore. I don't care what his mystery is. I don't care what he has to offer to the story. He's boring, he's bland, and not worth it. I'm not asking for a main character who's like, I'm gonna kick ass every single second. I'm just asking for a guy who is more interesting than him. It's like watching paint dry. That's it for Recreators, another re-anime, re-this, re-that, re. Now, I heard re is regards to, so it's regards to creators. Oh my god, it's been 40 minutes. Okay, and that's it guys. I'll see you next time for the next Rule of 3. Peace out.